Assalamu alaikum to all our listeners and viewers. I welcome you all to another exciting and educating edition, a special edition of the Health and Fitness Show. I'm Fahad Matin, your host for today, and it is a special because it is a special Ramadan. It is a Ramadan special. This show. And I hope and pray that all of us are fit and healthy and had a really nice Ramadan. It's almost done. We're just a week away from Eid, and if everything goes well, quite possibly Eid will be either next week Thursday or next week Wednesday. So yeah, it will be really sad for us to see Ramadan going, because that's what it is. Whenever we have some fun, it ends unfortunately really nice. But hopefully we all had a nice Ramadan so far, and the last few days of Ramadan which is remaining will be we will be spending those in prayers and try to get as much reward as we can in this remaining month. Anyhow, this program is broadcasting live from the online platforms of Inspire FM on today, 6th of May 2021. When I say online platform, that means we are live on Facebook Live of Inspire FM and YouTube Live of Inspire FM, and this program will be broadcasted on Saturday at 1 p.m. through our radio channel or through our radio airwaves for our lovely listeners in Luton and the surrounding areas of Luton, like Dunstable, Harpenden, Bedford, and definitely all our listeners who are listening us, or viewers who are viewing us via our Facebook channels or YouTube channel. Assalamu alaikum. As we all know, we cover different health related topics every single week, and as it's the month of Ramadan, and one of the biggest problem in Ramadan, which most of us see, is sleep deprivation, other than food and drink. But majority of us, well, at least I deal with quite big of sleep deprivation, and I've spoken to many of the other friends and colleagues, and they pretty much most of them say the same thing. So hence we thought, why not we pick a topic which works in that same line. So topic for today is sleep and insomnia awareness. Yes, you have heard me correctly. We are talking about sleep and insomnia awareness, and definitely I'm not the one who will be speaking about this topic. I'm the one who will be asking about how we can resolve our sleep deprivation from our very own in-house GP, and he's none other than Dr. Talib Abubacker. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Tom, how are you?
How are you? Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. How are you, sir?
I'm really good, thank you.
So I know we all our listeners. You are not new to our listeners and viewers, but just for the sake of our introductory way, can I ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers,
Yeah, I'm
please?
Talib Abubacker. I'm a GP in Bury Park, Bell House Medical Centre. I've been here since 1995, and I've got interest in lots of things, including good health, obviously, being a GP.
Obviously, and this is the very unique time of to be a GP, because you are coming across quite a few of different health related problems and issues, isn't it?
Well, I think COVID has been a massive thing for all of us, all of the world, let alone the country. So since 18 months,
Hmm.
it's been on our backs. We saw the initial stages in this country of huge numbers. Fortunately, that's coming down, but the rest of the world seems to be struggling. The vaccination program's gone really well, and I think people of Luton have taken up the vaccines really well. I can only encourage people to keep going, and those who, as your age group comes in, take it. And if you've missed out somehow, for some reason, whatever it might be, then contact 119, or through the website 111 website, you'll be able to book in. So it's really important, I think, for us to make sure we're vaccinated, because that's the biggest thing we can do to try and avoid another surge, certainly in this country.
Indeed, and as the days passing by, hopefully it will be opening up for all age group from 18 and above. And once those open up, I think so, so there will be some walk-in centers will be open up as well, I presume.
That's right. Yes, I think these pop-up clinics will be there. Places like Redgrave, Inspire. I think they'll ramp it up. I
Hmm.
think the bus that went round in Sainsbury's and places. I think that was really successful. I think you were part of that team
Yes.
involved with that. But that was really hugely successful. So you know, I know we're not quite talking about that today, but it's easy to get tired from everyone's point of view. So keep
Hmm.
at it. Keep your distance. Wash your hands. Make sure if you get a cough, a temperature change in smell or taste, get yourself a COVID test. It's so much easier now to get COVID tests. So make sure we're not spreading it. The numbers are coming down. Luton was still very high. I think we were first in the country a couple of weeks ago, but we're coming better now. So we're going down the list of the league table. So that's really good news. But we can't be complacent. It's really, really important that we do. I'm still getting patients who get a new cough and think, oh, I don't have COVID, and don't get the test done. You must, if you get a new cough that's not usual for you, must get a test done. It's so important because you can't tell. There's people who don't have symptoms who can pass it on. So if you've got a test, there's no way I, as a GP, just by listening to your chest, can tell it's COVID without you getting a test done. So if you get a new cough that's persisting, temperature for no reason, or loss of smell, get a test.
Hmm. And that's a PCR test or the lateral flow test.
Yeah,
Mhm.
either or. Correct.
Right, right. As you just said, clearly mentioned earlier that yes, today we are not talking about this, but it is very very exciting days and timings, and as the day passing by, 17th of May is coming very quickly, where another set of restrictions will be lifted up, and hopefully we will be talking about this if we do if the Eid fall on Wednesday, we may able to do our show next week. But unfortunately, if Eid fall on Thursday, then we won't be able to do a show next week, but depends on how things are. But anyhow, let's move on to our topic tonight, which is sleep and insomnia. Now, one of the things, Dr. Saab, we all struggle is with sleep deprivation, especially in the month of Ramadan. So, can I ask you, why do we sleep? Why sleep is very very important for us?
That's an interesting question because if you think of it, I was reading a book by Professor Matthew Walker. He's a British guy, but he's in America now.
Hmm.
But he is one of the top experts of sleep. And he says in his book, which is really interesting, is if you think about it, it's the time you're most vulnerable. So even as an animal, you're asleep, you're vulnerable to being attacked, you're vulnerable for things happening to you. Yet every single animal sleeps. So the fact every single animals over the millions of years animals have been around, and us being around for a few thousand years, um, we all sleep, and nature's made it so that we sleep from forever, really. So it must be really important because otherwise, why do something that you just a third of your life is just asleep? So hopefully we'll touch that as we go along. Is the importance of what your body does when it goes to sleep, and if you compromise your sleep, what damages you can do. So was that your question? You're on mute. Can't hear you.
Technology, exactly. And I try myself not to put myself on mute, but hey ho, it is what it is. So yes, and one of the things which I think so bears normally go for hibernation for 9 months or 6 months or something like that. So where they go in hibernation and sleep as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately, we don't need to do that. So, but the important sleep again in his book, Professor Walker mentioned. If you look at the Guinness Book of Records, um, they banned a few years ago any record attempts of avoiding sleep
Oh,
because they
wow.
feel that it's that dangerous to avoid sleep. So they will allow records like a man going up in a balloon right up into the uh, gravity, Earth atmosphere, space border
Hmm.
and jump off the balloon and rocket down at faster than speed of sound to Earth, they think that's safe enough to record the record for, but they won't recognize any sleep deprivation records. And if you look at torturing, and throughout the world, humans have been kind to each other by torturing each other. Lack of sleep is one of the most effective torturing methods people have. So that's why Geneva Convention and so forth have banned that as well. So that shows how important and potential risks of lack of sleep, and why it is so important to sleep and get your correct amount of sleep.
Now, one of the most common things people do like to know is that what is an adequate amount of sleep a human body needs, and at what time?
So ideally, if we think of caveman days,
Hmm.
you're looking at man woke up when the sun rose up and then went to sleep when the sun went down. There was no such thing as artificial light or anything like that. So that is your ideal sleep. What the scientists are saying, and you'll get various people saying, but most people, and certainly what Professor Walker said, is 8 hours. So 8 hours is optimum. Anything below that is your body starts to struggle. And the strange thing is you can't catch up on your sleep. Once that time's gone, the time's gone. So those who constantly miss out, they are causing problems for later on in life. So I would suggest 8 hours. So a range would probably be 7 to 9 hours. Children need far more. And it still worries me when I see young children, particularly babies, toddlers, they need 10 to 12 hours. Yeah, you see some, when I go to weddings and things, there's toddlers wide awake and running around, and you hear of people who are watching television till 10 o'clock and the kids are around in the background. That's not healthy for kids. And if you look at inflammatory conditions across the globe, they're increasing, and we think part of that is because the immune system isn't able to readjust itself and look after itself, and it starts to get ill because partly what we eat, but a lot of it is to do with how we struggle with sleep.
So that means there's a direct relation of our body getting repairing itself or repair itself with sleep. Is that correct? Of my
Absolutely.
understanding.
That's when you're completely at rest. Things start to switch off, but your body doesn't switch off. Other things are happening, different types of hormones. You get a circadian rhythm where your hormones are released at different times. Your gut hormones start to relax down, so they're not working so hard. But your brain, for example, they've shown more recently, that your brain shrinks while you sleep. And that allows the lymphatic system of the brain to clear out all the toxins that your brain builds up with overthinking during the day. So
Ah.
it clears it out, and that's why some people, if you don't have good night's sleep, you find you suffer from headaches,
Hmm.
because the toxins are building up. And again, some research is suggesting that Alzheimer's is linked to lack of sleep. Not all causes, but there seems to be a good strong link between Alzheimer's and lack of sleep. And they've shown that levels of amyloid, for example, which is a chemical that's harmful for the brain, starts to rise as you have lack of sleep. And that's built up over a number of years. I'm not suggesting 1 or 2 nights sleep here and there missed is going to be severely harmful. But over a long period of time, if you're not taking your sleep seriously, then it can cause issues.
Wow, wow. So, in terms of timings of sleep, now many people have different views of sleep timings. Some think that sleeping in daytime will be enough for them to have a quite good understanding of the day, because they work on shift patterns. Some people prefer long night sleep. Some people prefer late night sleep. Some prefer early night sleep. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the best time to sleep?
Nighttime is the best
Hmm.
time to sleep, when it's dark, because your brain switches off, the melatonin kicks in, and it puts you to sleep. And that's triggered off by one of the things is light. And that's one of the reasons we're finding that we're having problems with sleep, is because we've got lots of artificial light. So, when we go on to what's the best ways of going to sleep, one of the things is to switch off all lights, keep away from mobile phones. And I'm just as guilty. My wife's always having a go at me, but keep off your mobile phones, keep off your tabloids, tablets, and keep off your, just having lights around the house with bright light, that's what triggers off your brain. Now, the problem you've got is some of us have to do shift work. We can't get away from that. But the plan is to trick your brain into thinking it's nighttime. So make sure everything's dark, so really thick blinds and things like that. So if you are working nights, you have to work out a little system where you're tricking your brain into thinking it's daylight. So because that's really important. So any amount of light will trigger off the sensors in your brain to make you awake. And then you start to get broken sleep rather than going into deep sleep.
So, and what stop us having a sleep in general sense? What's stopping us sleeping wise?
Well, the most common is bad habits. So if we start getting into bad habits, we start, it's a bit like exercise. If you're really super busy, you cut out your exercise. But one of the other things we cut out on is sleep. So we're busy, we're doing things, and we think, oh, you know what, I'll work a little bit later, or I'll wake up a little bit earlier, and we start to cut down, and then that starts to become our habit. But the sort of things that affect our sleep, that there's certain things, that there's medical conditions that we have to be aware of, so that we'll need people to think about that, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But the commonest thing is bad bedtime routines. So some of the things that I would recommend that we talk about is, one, for example, we talked about already, don't have artificial light for at least 90 minutes to an hour before you go to bed. So avoid your mobile phone, avoid tabloids. So I keep calling it tabloids, tablets, your iPads and so forth. Try not to watch television late at night. Most of us have got televisions in our bedroom. Fortunately, I don't, so I can preach like anyone because I don't have one. But, you should have televisions in your bedroom, because it's artificial light. It'll start, even the blue screen blocks help a lot, but if you have light on, then your brain wakes up, and then it can't get back to sleep, because it thinks it's daylight, so it thinks it needs to keep alert, and thinks there's danger around, or it has to do something. So even if you feel quite relaxed, it's not. You're getting these micro stresses that are constantly keeping you awake. Eating late at night, so your gut has to break down all that food. So it's like a factory. It gets annoyed if you're eating late at night and you're supposed to be sleeping. The factory workers are saying, "Hang on a minute, I've got all this food to get rid of. Can't go into your deep sleep. Let's keep releasing the enzymes, releasing acid and so forth." So you're not going to get into your deep sleep. You are going to have light sleep, and you might think you're sleeping, but you're not getting into the deep REM sleep, which is the most helpful part of your sleep. So that's where most people dream and things like that. But that is so important. So people who are eating late at night have issues with sleep without realizing it. Drinking stimulants, so alcohol for some people is not good, but also coffee, caffeine, tea, for example. The half-life for coffee is 12 hours. So if you have a coffee at 5, 6 o'clock, you've still got half that coffee when you go to bed. And everyone knows coffee keeps you awake. So if we're having coffee late at night, you're not going to get a good night's sleep. You won't get refreshed. You won't have the lymphatic system clearing out your brain, which then gives you headaches. So coffee you need to avoid. I would, I'm a coffee man, but I normally have 1 or 2 a day, but after 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Some people can get away with it, but majority of people can't, and majority of people will lose out on their deep sleep if they drink coffee. I would suggest after 2 o'clock. Make sure you're well hydrated, drink plenty of water. Equally, don't drink too late water because you don't want to be getting up because your bladder's full through the night, because that'll get broken sleep. So people, I have patients who struggle with waking up 2 or 3 times through the night because of their bladder. Try not to drink past 8 o'clock at night, to allow the bladder to empty before you go to sleep. It'll
Well,
be much slower. So they're common things. Exercise, I think someone asked about exercise. I've got two minds with that. I think if you do vigorous exercise, your endorphins, your adrenaline's flowing, then it's likely to keep you awake. So the best time to do exercise is in the morning, not at night. But
I just received a question from one of our listeners, and the question says, "Can I still eat at night after sleep?" I mean, I think so. The person might be asking about Ramadan, because we
yeah,
sleep and then we wake up and we eat.
Ramadan's a special time. What we can't do is do Ramadan every day of the year. So it has so many benefits of fasting in terms of spiritual well-being, mental well-being, in terms of giving your gut a rest. So, I've got nothing against fasting, but you do need your 8 hours sleep. Unbroken sleep is better than broken sleep. Although there is some suggestion of you're sleeping in cycles. So, you may end up waking up, but ideally you need your 8 hours sleep. If you can get it in one big chunk, that's going to be better than having it in broken. And it does take, to get into your REM sleep, which is the most healthy part of your sleep, it can take you up to an hour to hour and a half to get into that REM sleep. So if you're waking up regularly, then you're not going to be able to get into that REM sleep, which is the most important part. So can you eat after you sleep? Of course, Ramadan, and we are waking up, and most people do go back to sleep afterwards. I'm guessing because it's early in the morning. I think for a month, it's not going to be a major problem, but it's not something I would recommend constantly, because after your brain and your heart, and the next most energy expending process in your body is digestion. So if as I said, if your factory workers of your digestive system working and working and working, and you're not giving them rest, then you start to struggle. And there's some studies, we talked about it once before, about windows of eating. And the ideal is between 8 to 10 hours of eating, and then you shouldn't be eating after that. So I always give an example of, if you're playing football on a pitch 24 hours a day, constantly playing on the pitch, the grass doesn't get a chance to grow. Or your stomach lining, your lining of your gut, which has to protect against these enzymes which are breaking down food, they need rest. So if you're constantly snacking, as soon as you put anything into your mouth and of any substance, your gut starts to prepare to digest it. So it releases enzymes, releases acid. So again, people with dyspepsia, heartburn, acidity struggle though. And one of the things that seems to help them is if not to eat at least 2 hours before you go to bed. And that seems to help a lot of people in reducing the amount of acid that's in your stomach.
Or possible, if possible, reduce all the. If you can't reduce the food itself, you should reduce all the junky and greasy foods, because that's also help a lot,
Yep.
isn't it?
Well, these things encourage your body to produce the enzymes, but particularly encourages acidity. If you think of acidity, your stomach sits there, and then you've got your food pipe above. Well, what stops the acid going above into the food pipe, which isn't designed to protect you against acid, is the diaphragm. Well, as soon as you lie flat, then that acid, and if you've got loose diaphragm, the acid starts to go into your gullet. Well, if your stomach's full of food, the acid's going to rise to the top, then it's much easier for that acid to start to affect your diaphragm. So, one of the things we're suggesting to people, because, I know it's not touching on sleep, but it has an effect, but we have a lot of patients on acid suppression tablets like omeprazole, ranitidine, Gaviscon, because they're having heartburn. Well, to fix the heartburn, we can mask it with the medication, but actually to fix it, it's doing simple things like not eating late at night, propping up your bed so you're slightly upright so the acid can stay in your stomach rather than tilting into your gullet, losing weight. As you gain weight, your diaphragm gets separated, so the valve doesn't work as well. So if you lose
Hmm.
weight, then that gets tighter, stops the acid from your stomach going in. Because it's a common problem to, we link it to sleep because people get woken up by that heartburn. Well, there's lots of things we can do. Don't eat greasy food. Rice, for example, late at night, high carbohydrates. I love it like the next person, but it's not good for us because it
Indeed.
takes a long time for our body to break it down. And it's just we're not using it, so it gets deposited, and then it gets stored in terms of cholesterol and glucose and so forth.
Indeed, indeed. And on that note, I must say, wow, the time has passed really, really quickly. We just about to a few seconds remaining to go for a break. So when we come back from the break, I will dig bit more deeper into the topic of insomnia and what causes it and how napping can affect the good night sleep as well in the daytime. So stay tuned. We will be right back after these very short messages. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all our listeners and viewers. Welcome back to the Health and Fitness Show. I'm your host Fahad Matin for today's show, and today we are talking about a very unique topic, which is sleep deprivation in terms of, or should I say, sleep and insomnia awareness. Awareness. Yes, you have heard me correctly. We are talking about sleep and insomnia awareness. Today, joining me in the studio is none other. Joining me on the online platform is none other than our doctor, our very own doctor, Dr. Talib Abubacker. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wal Islam.
This program is broadcasting live from the online platform of Inspire FM, which is Inspire FM Facebook Live and Inspire FM YouTube Live. For our listeners, for all our listeners and viewers, and this will be broadcast on our radio. It will be broadcast recorded on our radio show, radio Inspire FM radio on Saturday at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So, and this is a special edition of Ramadan because Ramadan is the time when things have changed quite a bit, and one of the most common things people do feel is a sleep deprivation. But anyhow, let's go back to our main topic today. So but if you have any questions or queries regarding our topic, please do send your questions via our online platform, which is Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and definitely we will try to answer you as much as we can. And before we start our show, sir, I think so. We have another question popped on the screen, and it says, "How much sleep does a 9-year-old need?"
I can't give you exact numbers. I haven't looked it up, but between 10 to 12 hours, I would suggest.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly no less than 10 hours.
Because yeah, it
Because
is.
they're
It is.
growing, they're going through, they're going through, they'll be reaching puberty in a couple of years. It depends on female or male. That's a time when things are growing. You need the energy, so you need the rest. So they definitely need that. I mean, just examples, I've had patients who, kids, for example, my biggest regret was to allow my children to have, and I'm talking about teenage kids now, was to have phones in their bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So as a parent, I think that was my biggest regret. And it's hard once you give into that to take it back out. So if you got young children, I would have definitely avoid having any form of IT in their bedrooms, particularly at night.
Which is which is very, very hard, especially in this day and age, I must
It's
say.
hard, but I had a child the other day who had really severe migraine, and everyone was convinced that there's something really seriously wrong with them, getting regular headaches. And we examined him and thought about, and then asked him about his sleep cycle and things, and it was awful. He was on his games till late at night. He wasn't sleeping. and he's gone from possibly needing scans and things to we cut out his IT at night, and he was quite sensible about it. Once I explained to him what it meant and how much better his headaches would be, he slept a lot better, and his migraines and headaches went. And I'm sure it's because our brain is not used to being constantly on. Well, with all of these artificial things, it's constantly on. So, in answer to the question, a 9-year-old, I think at least 10 hours.
Yeah, because I have my son who's 8 year and a few months old. I must say, he is. Well, we cannot keep him awake after 9 o'clock. After 9, I can see that he's literally dozing off wherever he can find a place. Because
Yeah.
we have made sure that he will go to his bed around 8ish every single
Yeah.
night. So which is really good, and he wakes up first thing in the morning around half 7, 8ish, half 7ish.
They talk about sleep hygiene, and part of sleep hygiene is to get into a routine
Mm-hmm.
so that your body learns. So you darken the lights. One of the good things that they suggest is blue blockers, blocking blue light. So you can get them. They're quite cheap from Amazons and things. So if you do find it difficult to sleep, and just get these glasses which are filter out blue light. And apparently, because blue light switches you on, and a lot of the artificial lights and things have blue light in them. So if you block them out, that helps make your brain think that it's getting dark and it's time to go to bed. But get into routines. Don't do exciting things. Don't watch a horror film or anything like that to pass the time. But IT in this, you can see as IT went up, artificial lights, street lights, and things like that, and then now more recently with phones and things, as that goes up, sleep has become less. We're probably sleeping at least a couple of hours less than what we did 50 years ago. But then
Indeed.
you look at the other conditions like depression, anxiety, inflammatory conditions like arthritis, heart disease, diabetes is all going up as well. And partly it's connected to how alert we are when we shouldn't be.
Indeed, indeed. In terms of our topics, insomnia. First of all, what is insomnia and what causes insomnia?
Well, insomnia is chronic lack of sleep. Some will make it as a medical term, but sleep deprivation most of the time is what we've discussed is because of bad habits. We're causing ourselves not to sleep, but there are other conditions that can cause. So there's specific sleep problems, which is sleep insomnia, which is a specific problem in itself. So if you've tried all the things we're talking about and you're still having problems, then you'll need to go to your doctor about it. We used to give, and we still do, I guess, give out sleeping tablets, but the evidence for them is now really strong that we shouldn't be giving out sleeping tablets
Why?
because they're sedatives, because they don't help sleep. They don't get you into a sleep. They just knock you out. And you don't get the same changes in your body that you do with normal REM sleep. So that's why most people who have sleeping tablets still feel a bit punch drunk the next day. So sleeping tablets, they're useful for short term where something bad's happened or you've had a terrible time, you've been super busy and you just can't switch off. It's quite good for a few days maximum. The licensed dose is only for 2 weeks. Historically we've always given them out because we didn't know any better. The research wasn't there, but now the research is there. So what you'll find, and it's patients really struggle with us saying, well, we're not going to give you any more. We can't keep giving it to you and we wean you off. It becomes an addiction. So what happens is you need more sleeping tablets to get the same amount of sleep. And then obviously they're all licensed at a certain dose. Your body becomes tolerant to it. So you get stuck on the tablets and still not sleep, which is no good to anyone. And then particularly as you get older, the elderly, it makes your senses dumbed down, so you're more likely to fall and break your hips. So when you look at the elderly and hip fractures and associated with being on sleeping tablets, the ratio is quite high. So certainly over the last few years, we're getting better at not giving out sleeping tablets and to do it much more naturally.
So naturally means the techniques which you just explained earlier.
some of the things, I'm sure we can go through it again. But other causes of insomnia are really important because they're smaller, but they are important for people to understand. So, for example, sleep apnea is a cause of insomnia, a type of insomnia, because so what sleep apnea is the throat doesn't stay open. So when you lie down, it starts to get a bit flatter, and so the oxygen you're getting isn't enough. So you start getting broken sleep, and then because you
Hmm.
get broken sleep, so the symptoms are you wake up and you don't feel refreshed. Now, most of us will wake up wanting to stay in bed and not wanting to get up. So you've got that mind. It's where you've got up, you've brushed your teeth, you've gone downstairs, you've done this, and you still feel shattered, and you still feel
Hmm.
as if you could go to sleep. That's the type of sleep apnea. Or you're talking to someone and you're dropping off in front of them, or you're driving and you're dropping off. Well, that's dangerous. You should stop driving and go to your doctor about it. But if you're sat watching television and you're always dropping off and everyone's taking the mick because you're dropping off, well, that sort of thing is not normal. That needs to be assessed. And the common symptoms are, snoring, or people who are sleeping with you will notice that you seem to stop breathing for a few seconds at a time. All of those things are important to get checked out.
Hmm.
Other conditions that can cause difficulty sleeping: asthma, COPD. So if your asthma and COPD aren't well controlled, you're going to be breathless, so you're not going to get the deep sleep you need. So get
Hmm.
that under control by going to see a GP or your respiratory nurses. Things like heartburn, we've talked about already, that keeps people awake. Prostate problems with urine. Again, they're problematic. They can keep people awake. So again, get that checked out. One of the big ones that we mustn't forget is heart failure. So
Hmm.
if your heart's not pumping as well, and you're suddenly waking up breathless, or you get ankle swelling and breathlessness at night, again, think about heart failure. And that's where the heart's not pumping as well as it should do. You get back pressure forming, which then you get fluid in your lungs, which then at night
Causes
with
more
the
problem.
various
Yeah.
changes, it can cause problems. So, if you're waking up breathless, then you need to think. And pain, most pain will settle through the night. But if you're waking up with severe pain in certain parts and you've got bony tenderness, you've got to think of other causes. And there's a whole host, so inflammatory causes right through to cancers. But all of those are quite rare. The commonest thing I see with sleep is people are getting anxious, people are either suffering from depression, or they're too busy, or they've got poor sleep hygiene.
Hmm. I just received another question, which is very, very interesting in many different ways. And the question goes: can persons sleep too much that is bad for their health?
I wouldn't say, well, yeah, it's bad for your health in the sense that, we're designed to be upright, we're designed to work our muscles, we're designed to breathe, eat, and things like that. So if you're sleeping most of the time, your muscles aren't working, you're not able to do things. We're not designed to lie flat all the time. So, if you look at the hospital, within 2 days, if you're in bed without moving, your muscle bulk reduces by about a third.
Hmm.
So too much sleep, and this is, what is too much sleep. And that's why I think the range between 7 to 9 hours is probably about right.
Hmm.
Okay, if you do 10 hours, that's okay once in a while. But you don't want to be spending all your time sleeping, because what's the point of being alive? You'll have plenty of time to sleep when the time comes up for when you pass away. But yeah, too much sleep. If you're constantly sleepy and you're constantly tired, either you're not getting the normal REM sleep and the deep sleep that you should be getting.
Hmm.
So have a look at the things that we've been talking about. But also, is there an illness? Are you too sleepy because you got sleep apnea, or you've got some form of sleep disorder? So yeah,
Hmm.
then they need to be checked out. Are you anemic, for example, and making you excessively tired? Are you diabetic and not realized it making you excessively tired? So thyroid disease can make you excessively tired. But there's small percentage of all the people I see who are tired all the time.
Hmm. Wow, I never thought that many things can keep you, get you tired as well. I thought it's just nothing. Sometimes it's having a bit of lie down and not having lie down. It's something. But anyhow, going moving on. In terms of napping, when we talk about short breaks of sleep. Napping is one of the very awkward things when people, as you just said, speaking and dozing off, or traveling in a car as a passenger, and just doze off because it's feeling you're all by yourself, getting bored, it's slightly dark, all those environments which you were mentioning to have a good night sleep just kicked in and you just slept. But because you are driving in the car, or you've been driven in a car, or you are in a place like cinema or somewhere else, y- you end up having a nap, small nap. So will those small naps affect good night sleep?
Um, they can affect your sleep. So there's two different. There's a few things that you've said there. Certainly, sleeping while you're driving is not a good thing. So if that's happening and you shouldn't be driving, your insurance gets nullified, and you really need to speak to your doctor about sleep apnea.
No, I mean
Sleeping
sleeping
while
while
you're
you're a passenger
while you're
rather
a
than driver.
passenger on a long journey and you happen to drop off, once in a while, that's not a problem. But if you're doing that all the time, and it's a common joke that you are, and you snore at night and you have broken night sleep, then you need to think about sleep apnea. But what the research shows, which I need to talk to my wife about, but a power nap during the day is actually beneficial.
Hmm.
So it doesn't seem to affect your sleep. And if you've had a lack of sleep for whatever reason, you've been busy, you've got lots of things on your mind or whatever, having a power nap during the day up to half an hour, 40 minutes is supposed to be good. Yeah. So intentionally going to sleep for a short while is good. And there's lots of evidence for that. Certainly, Manchester United football team, they were one of the first under Alex Ferguson to have a sleep room. They actively encourage their footballers to go to sleep in the middle of the day, about 2, 3 o'clock before they restart their afternoon training.
Hmm.
And they got sleep experts to look at that and got them the most comfortable sleeping arrangements. And sports are really important. Elite sportsmen need their sleep.
Hmm.
So if you look at the British cycle team, for example,
Hmm.
um, they broke lots of world records. They won loads of Olympic gold medals. And what they did was improve little bits in everything: their equipment, their kit, their helmets, their bikes. But one of the things they concentrated on, just as importantly, was the sleep. And
Hmm.
they found that people didn't sleep in hotel rooms very well. So, of course, when you're traveling the world
Hmm.
pre-COVID, people sleep in hotels to do races and things. So they used to encourage them to bring their own duvets and pillows from their room
Really?
as
Wow.
part of their ability to sleep better in hotels.
Hmm.
And that's how detailed their research got. So it just shows how important the sleep is, and finding the best way to sleep. And if you're not sleeping, read books. A very good book, and I think I've mentioned it before, and people get sick of me mentioning it, but Dr. Rangan Chatterjee,
Hmm.
The Four Pillar Plan. He's got a whole section on sleep, and most of what I've said comes from that, and Matthew Walker. Matthew Walker's book's really good, but it gets a bit detailed. But Rangan Chatterjee's book, The Four Pillar Plan or Stress Solution, just as good. He's written 2 other books as well, which are really good. But he's got a really good section on sleep, which explains it in a really good way.
Hmm. I
But
just
some of the
receive a
things, for example, and I'm just worried about running out of time, but we need
yeah.
to touch on. You tell me when on how would you get a good night's sleep?
Yeah, please do carry on that particular part. But I just received a text message saying, on my personal phone saying, um, uh, is it okay to have Red Bull before sleeping?
No. Red Bull is like 11 cups of coffee. Yeah. And if you have the sugar one, you're having a sugar high as well.
Hmm.
So that's the worst thing you can have. And if you get into the habit, Red Bull should be banned. And I hope I don't get struck off for saying that, but the caffeine in that is huge. And youngsters aren't designed to have high dose caffeine. You shouldn't be
Hmm.
really giving coffee for youngsters. But Red Bull, we've seen kids getting palpitations and irregular heart rates and things like that because of Red Bull,
Hmm.
or any of the energy drinks. They're all very high in sugar and very high in caffeine. So
Hmm.
yeah, no, completely the opposite.
Hmm.
You shouldn't
Indeed.
be doing that. So things
Okay.
you can do to go to sleep properly is Always wake up at the same time,
Hmm.
whether it's a weekend or not. Get your body into some form of pattern. Set an alarm to go to bed.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
a lot of us will, and I'm just as guilty as the next one. Or I'll do a bit more of this, or let me watch this program, or let me just finish this, let me finish that. Yeah. So instead of going to bed at 9, 10 o'clock, you're now getting to 11, 11:30. Well, if you're getting up at 5:30, that's not your 8 hours sleep. So set an alarm at least 10, 15 minutes before you go to bed, so that you've got something to remind you that it's time to go to bed. Because most of us go to bed, but it's not the time we fall asleep.
Yep.
So the 8 hours is sleep time. It's not when you're in bed. Yeah. So put an alarm on. Avoid coffee. Stay well rehydrated throughout the day, but avoid coffee after 2 o'clock, and
Hmm.
caffeine. And tea has caffeine as well. Don't forget. So calamine tea, for example, doesn't. So that's quite nice to have late at night.
Hmm.
Um, Block blue light. Apparently, that's really good. Cut out your IT. We talked about that.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, early morning exposure to sun is supposed to be very helpful.
Really?
So during
Wow.
the day, sunlight
Hmm.
helps energize you, and then that seems to help sleep later on in the day. So exposure of sun in the mornings is really important. Even in winter, for example, um, sunlight has lots of effects on your mental well-being. But if you're in an office like this, my light's not particularly bright, but it's reasonably bright. You're getting 800 lux to 1,000 lux, which is the measurement of light. If you go outside in winter, in a cloudy winter, you're getting 3 to 4,000 lux. On a sunny day like this, you may be getting to 9 to 10,000, and on a really hot summer day, you're getting 15,000, 20,000.
Hmm.
And that's really important for your mental well-being. But that also makes sure you're doing all the things you need to do during the day, so that when it comes to sleep, it comes down. So I don't know if my parents come from a small village in India, and it's there's very little artificial light, and it's surprising how when because it's right on the equator, so sunset is about 6:30,
Hmm.
and it's pitch black by 7. And it's surprising. I couldn't work it out why I always felt tired, and I'm always like falling asleep about 8 o'clock, 8:30. It's because A, it's hot and I've got a lot of sunlight during the day, and B, it's pitch black dark. I don't have my TV, I don't have my mobile phone, I don't know. It's pitch black, and I'm falling and having the best sleeps that I've had for ages. And it just shows how our rhythm works. And if we disrupt it by
Hmm.
keeping alert, stress is one of the biggest things. If our mind's constantly active, you need to learn how to switch that off. And some of the things we talked about, meditation, for example, that's really good.
Hmm.
All of these things help. Cutting out sugary drinks, cutting out caffeine, really important. Artificial foods, we've talked about it many, many times, about the
Hmm.
more natural your food looks like in a natural way, i.e., fruits and vegetables and things like that, and things that you cook from basics rather than artificial processed foods, much better for your gut health, much better for your general health, and much better for your sleep.
Indeed. Indeed. And I must say, sometimes it's really, really good to have a book as well, because for me, if I put a book on, I just sleep straight in.
Yeah, a book. If you're going to read, if you find your way, read a book,
Hmm.
because then it's not bright light, just book, just normal old-fashioned book. Read that,
Hmm.
and then if you get into a pattern, then slowly but surely it will return. And do exercise. Go for walks during the day. If you don't want to exercise, try not to do too much vigorous late at night. But
Hmm.
certainly by 7 o'clock, try and do your exercise by then. But exercise every day, and going for a brisk walk. Get some nature. Nature is really good. We've got lovely parks in Luton, Stockwood
Hmm.
Park, Wardown Park, and you've got the hills around.
Hmm.
It's amazing. And again, that there's research showing that it does help you sleep.
So, as you just mentioned about exercise, so can exercise, good exercise, relates to good sleep, and how does it work in terms of to create a better health? Will it work
But
hand in hand?
exercise, we've talked about exercise lots of times, about your health of your heart, health of your brain, well-being, mental well-being. But your gut works better, your immune system's much stronger with exercise. And then, the simplest answer to yours is, you tire yourself out more, you're going to sleep better.
Hmm.
But then the sleep helps regenerate all the things that your muscles have been doing, gets rid of the waste, and actually helps you. I quite like the example someone gave me about your immune system being like an army. It's there to help you, it's there to fix things, it stops disease, it stops infections, it fixes things, it repairs your body. But if your army is not rested, what kind of army are you going to have?
A bad one.
If you give your army bad food, what kind of army are you going to have? If you're abusing your army all the time, it's not going to work effectively for you. And so sleep seems so obvious why it's important and why you need the necessary amount, 7 to 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours sleep.
Mm, indeed, indeed. And sometimes those, if you have a good proper night's sleep in the morning, it feels very, very like you're very alert. Things goes very well. The day is
Yeah,
better than normal days. So, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, sleep is so important. And I would definitely recommend that book. I know I keep going on about it. I don't have any shares in it, but I've bought it a few times and given it away, and I had to keep buying it for myself. But I've probably read it 4 or 5 times myself. But the 4 pillar plan,
Hmm.
Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, the 4 pillars are um, diet, exercise, sleep, and relaxation, or how you reduce stress.
Hmm.
Those are the 4 pillars. And if you work on a little bit of each, and he gives you examples of why it's important, and then he gives you exercises to do to improve that. And if you work on each, then you find you just become healthier naturally.
Indeed. And on that note, sir, wow, the time has passed really, really quickly. We're just about to approach end of the show. Last 30 seconds, quick message for our listeners before we end the show.
Sleep well. Don't cut corners with your sleep.
Hmm.
And maybe, I mean, the book goes through a little bit about what people should do if they're shift workers, because it's a bit harder. So,
Hmm.
simple example is if when you're coming out of work and it's the morning, wear some sunglasses. So you're tricking your brain into thinking it's getting dark.
Hmm.
Have blackout blinds, have really thick curtains, wear iPads if you need to. And that goes for people who have trouble sleeping at night as well.
Hmm. Perfect. Wow. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and giving us
Pleasure.
such honestly lovely advices for today. And this is all for tonight, guys. Hopefully, if there's Eid tomorrow, if Eid's next Thursday, then we will be doing a show on following Thursday. But until next time, stay tuned and keep remembering us in our dua, in your duas, because it's the time of Ramadan. So we need everybody's duas. Until next week, I'm your host Fahad Matin, saying Assalamu Alaikum.
Welcome.